How's it, my old friend? Yeah, what can I say? Believe it or not, things still shock me from time to time. And in this week's news, once again, the state of our army units, bases, camps, equipment, etc., etc. So this video is about the state of the South African National Defence Force, as it is lately called. Used to be the SADF. In short, what it basically said was the army. I was there. I could tell you some great tales about it. But the armed forces in South Africa is not in a good state. In particular, the National Defence Force, and as you most probably know, also our police force faces massive challenges with crime that's rife in the country, as well as corruption well embedded within the ranks of the SAPS. For the past 20 years, specifically the force, which its only function is to keep the citizens of the country safe, has failed miserably, time and time again, to the point where serious crime like murder, rape, distortion, and even common assault is totally out of control. Our Defence Force, responsible for protection of our borders, including sea and air, are also under scrutiny, especially after it recently was reported that the property, state property, and lands of at least 10 bases have been subjected to land invasions and construction of informal settlements, things happening there. Now, this is deeply alarming. Ongoing illegal occupation and encroachment on South African National Defence Force bases is a growing crisis that poses a serious threat to national security, also military readiness and public safety.
The chief of the South African Army told the media last year that the army was battling to cope with budgetary constraints and straining to fulfill its national and international obligations as South African forces were becoming more in demand in peacekeeping operations across the African continent.
Well, this lack of proper equipment, the equipment they have is obsolete. It's very, very old. The tracking, transportation. Unfortunately, we have a moral obligation to assist this continent. That has been the dream of the Mandelas and Beggies. So if, therefore, the UN as well as the AU look at us as one of the main powers in the continent, we have to make sure that we deliver when they give us the message, the mandate.
The Defence Forces Service Commission says the situation is so dire that the South African Army would struggle to contain an internal revolt within its own borders.
Each passing day, new evidence emerges of a breakdown in operations, logistics, protocols and security in our South African National Defence Force. Not only are our soldiers abroad sent into battle at their peril, but at home our military cannot even secure the borders of its own property. So we shouldn't wonder why we can't secure the borders of this country, a so-called sovereign state.
Sadly, we cannot even help our police when the riots were to erupt or internal uprisings and so on. You need to make sure that when you go and assist the police, you have got proper equipment, I'm afraid the equipment we have, I'm not talking about guns, I'm talking about troop carriers. They need to, the troops must feel safe. I don't think the equipment we have currently, those troops would confidently say they are safe.
The Service Commission report has recommended an annual budget of nearly 120 billion rands, or more than 3% of South Africa's GDP, for the SANDF to reach its highest level of military capability.
Now, a report presented recently to the Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans that in May last month revealed that at least 10 Defence Force bases have been affected by illegal informal settlement and also other forms of encroachment. This includes the shocking revelation that at Maryvale military base in Gauteng, military land is being used to keep cows and goats in a kraal, a clear abuse of state property and military infrastructure. Then also the following bases have been identified as being affected. There's a problem there. Walmanstal military base in Gauteng, Tamboersloof military base in the Western Cape, Lens military base in Gauteng, Defence Headquarters Gauteng, Combat Training Centre in the Northern Cape, 83 Ammunition Depot in the Northern Cape, Defence Work Training Centre in Gauteng. But I think this list is not complete, because we recently also saw, as far back as I think last week, that Youngsfield has also been populated over the years with many, many illegal immigrants. Some of them might be legal, you will never know. So this goes on for miles and miles. Now, these encroachments aren't just a matter of poor land management. They directly impact the functioning of our Defence Force. But now you may ask, where is the Defence Force? Well, if they are not protecting certain of our ministers and politicians' interests in countries like the Congo, Burkina Faso and wherever, where are they? Are they on permanent leave, or what is happening?
Minister, can you briefly tell us what's the latest from Goma? We are told that the chiefs of Summit DRC met with stakeholders on the ground. What is the latest?
You know, the latest is that the very Monday they will come from heads of states from SADC and EAC had a joint meeting, and a decision was taken at that meeting that the chiefs of defense forces should go to the DRC and Goma in particular to implement the decisions of that joint summit.
A spokesperson for the SANDF said the Defence Force was not commenting at the moment on the views, opinions or interpretations of individuals or the media on the 2014 Defence Review.
Defence Force needs a revamping, a big revamping.
Now, reports point to rampant theft of vehicle parts, stripping of vehicles, electrical cables, IT equipment, office supplies, infrastructures being damaged or stolen, including perimeter fencing and security lights, while illegal water connections have become widespread. This has left bases vulnerable and undermined their operational capacity. Now, I can tell you, when I was one night sort of taken down out of a conversation, and that's far back, it was in 2013.
How dare you?
After a weekend in Bloemfontein and Kimberley, where my travelling partner took me to his old base there at, what was it called, Tempe in Bloemfontein. And we went into Tempe. We didn't even need to be parachuted in or anything. We went in there. Nobody even paid attention to us, and we saw the decay already then. That's 12 years ago. Following day, on the Saturday, we went to Kimberley. And we went into my old base, one maintenance, the Skobelos. Well, I mean, the bungalows were empty. There were no signs of life that those bungalows were used. 12 years ago already. Yes, that's right. There were no signs of even bungalows that were used. Beds, those cabinets, everything was just lying in some of the bungalows. Grass was growing this high. If I say this high, about a meter high, there were some places where it was even higher. You couldn't walk in there without carrying a shotgun or something. You might have been attacked by a lion. So this is coming a long way. So all of a sudden, oh, we're shocked. Really? I see the DA is trying to clean up those guys in Youngsfield now. After battling with court cases for 5 years to get something from our courts to say they got to be moved. They're actually on government property. They're on a military base. That used to be all national key points, by the way, falling under Law 102 of 1980, in the interest of the country. Yeah, it's unacceptable that this is happening under the watch of the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, Angie Motshekga, who appears to be doing nothing to address it, like she addresses nothing. The DA is treating this as a matter of urgency, and I'm sure they will also be submitting written parliamentary questions to the Minister to demand clarity on what steps are being taken to stop the illegal occupation of our military bases, facilities, and all these responsible, or those responsible, accountable. But it's not going to help, because most of these parliamentarians and politicians, they're not accountable.
The process also to bring the weapons, is it still part of the agreement?
No, the weapons, I think it was just ready, the push and pull. It's never been any issue. At some stage, there were all these rumors that we will have to withdraw and leave our weapons, which we stated quite clear that we're not leaving any weapons. But it was not a demand that was formally put on the table. It was a rumored demand that was there in the passage. So it's never been an issue.
They can't be blamed for anything, because everything you blame on apartheid. If that doesn't work, you blame it on the system. Yeah, it's not money. So I believe the DA will embark on oversight inspections to several of these bases in the coming weeks, and will invite the media to accompany us to witness firsthand how and why our military facilities are being compromised. How? I don't think they need much to investigate. Compliments of the ANC, that's how. And why? Also simple. We don't give a flying fuck. South Africa's national defence infrastructure cannot be left to deteriorate. Well, I've got news for all of those out there that's shocked about it or whatever. It's already deteriorated. Whether we allow it, yeah, we've allowed it so far. What are we going to do about it? I don't know. So I hope the DA will continue to fight to ensure that our military bases are secure, professionally managed, and protected from abuse. But yeah, I know. If you've got generals, more generals than soldiers, because that's how it seems. Lately everybody's a general. So there's more chiefs than Indians, like they normally say. And you've got a Minister of Defence. Good God, she couldn't even get basic education right. Then, I'm lost for words. I don't know what to say. Only thing I can tell you is I went the other day to my old unit where I started my basic training way back in the 70s, which is Grahamstown 6i. And here's some video footage. Yeah. No, and if you look on that side here, I just want to see if I can find my bungalow. My bungalow here is some sports club on that side. I believe my bungalow was that one. Hello. Was. Yeah, when we come back now. Aha, you see. Yeah. This was, these were all rugby fields, eh? On that side, but just look at, here's some serious potholes. Oh. Gauteng, GP. Yeah, those were like water tanks. I don't know if they still got water in. They should be having water in. But this is a big camp. It's like I say, it's more than 7,000 hectares in the old days. And these were like prime. Rugby fields over there are the flats in the distance where the PFs used to stay, where they trimmed their moustaches and came in with a force to give the troops some houding. Where I basically drove through the unit. I was allowed in, I got access very, very quickly. There were two soldiers because lately they all look like bosvechters. They all got camos on. We never used camos. Very seldomly on the border even. Well, I mean, we had browns. And there were two guys, both were corporals. And I can tell you something. They were not like the corporals. When you ran into a corporal, and take note, when you ran into a corporal, because in training camps like that, you weren't allowed to walk. Now, I know, normally it's necessary to run to the toilet, but normal people walk to the toilet. But there, you ran to the toilet, you ran everywhere. The only place you never ran in Grahamstown while under basic training was when you went to the Groot Skietbaan, the big shooting range. Because they didn't want you tired when you got there. They wanted you fresh. So they took you out there with a Bedford.
Boss, as nie 'n fucking maatjie nie. What the fuck maak jy, venter? Jy skiet so kakkie, kan jy sy fucking hoe raak skiet as hy voor jou sit en kakkie.
But you came back with a Bedford. You ran back. Okay? So I drove around in Grahamstown. It looked more like a place, like an old sort of a holiday, vacation sort of a premises. Everything is kind of dilapidated. There's even potholes on those precious tar roads within the camp's perimeters. No signs of life, no signs of activity. Here and there you saw people walking in civvy outfits, like we used to say, tracksuits and that. I don't know what the exercising is, because if you look at the posture and the body size and that, I don't think they can be operational within the next 365 days. But for the rest of it, nothing reminded me of 50 years ago when I was in that unit.
Lots of people like to hear about 3-2 Battalion because it was an exceptional organization. A lot of people like to hear the stories of the Rekkies, the reconnaissance regiments, their troops. They were good, of course. And in the process, one thing that doesn't come out, which was very important, was the normal infantry soldier operating on foot.
Geluk dat jy die infantrie as 'n beroep gekies het. Basics het julle geleer om as 'n soldaat te werk. Ons gaan julle leer om as 'n span te werk.
There were like 3,500 soldiers in training there. And when you drove in there, whether you even drove in there at night time, you could see this was a defense training facility.
Kopral van Dodder! Kopral! Sail! Ja, kopral! Kom maar! Ja, kopral! On! Yes, corporal!
All the buildings were like in mint condition. Floors were shiny. No broken window panes in buildings. And so I can carry on and on and on.
You know, it is absolutely amazing that a country of that size, with the bush as it is, and with a long east to west, 1,500 kilometers or more from west to east, with infiltration coming from Angola into Namibia, the question arises, how the hell did it happen that we managed to bring the incursions, the insurgency, almost to a complete stop? Nowhere else in the world they managed to do such a thing like that. And one of the main reasons was the normal infantry soldier on foot. I know many of those people who were national servicemen came back and said to their parents, you know, we wasted our bloody time there. Because we patrolled every day and every night and we never even saw one ter, meaning a terrorist. But they failed to realize that the reason why there were no insurgents was because of their presence. So because it was patrolled in such a manner, together with other activities too, that they restored normal life in Namibia. So many of the guys that still walk the streets will tell you, oh, well, it was just a waste of time. But they don't know that they are some of the real heroes of that era. Because it nowhere else in the world happened what happened there in Namibia. And people still come to me from overseas and say, how the hell did you manage to do this? But I must say this, about the South African soldier, if I haven't said it before, that they were probably the best in the world at that time. Perhaps I'm so proud of them that I overstate it. But give me an answer to this question. How can it be that our South African force, although it was, I say it was good, by international standards it was small. How can it be that in let's take the tough years of 1987-88, how can it be that a South African force of slightly over 3,000, if that, at any given point in time, how could it be that we beat them? If you ask me that question, how it comes up? Because our guys were just too good. Now, there's only one reason. It's because of the quality of our people, the ingenuity of our people. Because if you haven't got all the money that they have, all the guns, all the everything, you have to be clever, and you have to be brave, and you have to be well trained. That's exactly what happened.
But that was the Defence Force I served.